Hey, it's Friday again, and it is another forensic happy hour. Thank you. Hope you enjoy it. Today, actually, going to be talking with Alexis Brignoni, and it's actually really good. You bring smart people on, and people enjoy it a lot more than just listening to me drone on. So, hey, I appreciate it. Enjoy. Here's to you. Very good. Excellent. What I want you to do first, Alex, is just, a little introduction, a little bit, what you do, the fun time that you have, all that good stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I mentioned before we started, I want to apologize to all the viewers, right? I mean, I kept the secret that I don't drink, but I have a Coke Zero here in lieu of it. So,
Yeah, and I did explain to you that I will make sure that I will drink it for you. So good.
well, yeah. So a little bit about my background. I'm in federal law enforcement. I mentioned that just to so folks know, all my online presence is about the forensics, personal research, and I don't put my agency in any of this. But that's pretty much my that's not pretty much that is my day job. So I do digital forensics for a law enforcement agency, federal law enforcement, and the usual stuff, phones, computers, anything that comes to the door, I look at, and then my free time I also spend it on forensics, but kind of sharing with the community, trying to learn how to code better. Some tools that I developed. I got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, so keep me busy also on the weekends. And life is good.
Yeah, and kind of segueing into that, I come from law enforcement, almost 15 years as well, a long time ago. But thinking of now on the forensics side of it, and obviously you're currently on the law enforcement. Um, what are you seeing, I guess, differently from when you first started in the field to now?
Well, I've been pretty privileged, and if it's not obvious by my accent, I'll say it. Obviously, I'm a Spanish native speaker, come from Puerto Rico, and based on that, that skill of being able to speak in Spanish, I've been able to teach a lot in throughout the Americas, like Latin American countries. And what I'm seeing as I'm teaching, also my casework, is the move from a lot of PC desktop based activity to mobile activity, and that's kind of my focus now has been really shifted towards mobile, iOSs, Androids, burner phones of all sorts, KaiOS operating systems. Folks have 2 3 phones on them at a minimum, right? So I'm seeing that the casework being moved to mobile really heavily in the last couple of years specifically.
Yeah, and so one of the things obviously that I had too, I remember first starting in kind of the CID, and I'm like, okay, great. You get the phones in, you're taking pictures of it because it was back in the day of kind of just trying to figure out, okay, what type of software can I get at the store to be able to
Yeah, to
extract the
work it.
data.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at that time, I was doing primarily computer forensics, just the same thing. So one of the things obviously that I tell people now, and you tell me if this is true for
Hmm.
you is that you would rather look at someone's mobile device or say cloud services, that type of data, rather than their PC or their laptop,
No,
right?
absolutely. I mean, even it's kind of funny. A couple of years ago, I gave my wife a computer, so and the only time she uses the computer is tax time. That computer sits in a closet, and when it's time to do taxes, she brings it out, does the taxes, and then the computer goes back into the closet. She does everything with her cell phone or her tablet, right? And not only because the people have more activity. Recently, I was talking at a couple of conferences with a colleague presenting on a pattern of life artifacts, right? And those pattern of life artifacts in regards to location, the activities that you do on the phone that's with you all the time, really illuminate the investigations, right? So I'd rather have that to be able to get to the truth of the matter versus a computer which usually, even if it's a laptop, doesn't have that richness in that sense compared to a mobile phone. So I agree 100% with you. I mean, for
Yeah.
investigating much better. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I look at it too. Is you think of it personally, right? So if you're under some investigation, right, you have a laptop and like, hey, you bet, take a look at that. We need to look at your phone. I'm like, yeah, I'll have to fight you for that, right?
No,
Because it's no different, right?
No, I make clear to everybody that's watching, right? I mean, obviously, we go, and you know this from law enforcement, we go always through the proper authorities, either search warrants, consent, we do things right. But the amount of data that cell phones keep, it's amazing. I mean, it's
Yeah,
incredible. It's
agreed.
incredible.
So yeah, let's bring it on this way because I know that one, you're a super technical guy, and from developing your own scripts to creating really and solving problems that maybe tools, mainstream tools don't, right? One of my big mantra, or that I always get on my soapbox is about, hey, you know what? We can't just go in and say push a button and expect to go in and out to testify to the data, right? We need to understand it, but we have to understand that the tools out there aren't going to be able to harvest or be able to find that information because tools are developed by man, right?
Yep.
And so there's going to be things you have to do. So that's obviously one of the things that I know that you're pretty heavy on. So tell me, what are you working on? What are some of the things that you're bringing to the community that they might not have available within some of the automated tools?
Oh no, this is a great series of questions there. One of the things that my soapbox is the report that you get from your tool is not the evidence, right? The evidence is the evidence. And that means that we need to up our skill set, right? We need to, okay, we have the reports, the tools facilitate us being able to manage all this data deluge that we have, right? And that's great. But at some point, you need to actually go in there and apply your personal understanding and skill set to actually be able to interpret correctly, because the tool will not interpret for you. The tool will not testify for you. You will do that. That's what we're getting paid, and that's what we do, right? So with that in mind, what I'm trying to do is first develop some scripts so folks can actually not be blind to what's happening behind the scenes, right? I script a lot in Python. It's open source. It's in my GitHub. And folks can then use them. And yes, it provides reports, absolutely. But you can go and look at the script and figure out exactly what is being done. So you can maybe backtrack it if need be, right? Another thing that I'm doing with those scripts is hopefully bring attention to artifacts that I think are important and the vendors might not be aware. And that's okay, right? Any vendor, no matter what company it is, I understand it's impossible for them to parse every single artifact in the world. It's just mathematically impossible, right? So what I do is, based on my experience and other folks, create artifacts for what we think is important. Hopefully vendors, and you usually do, hope vendors follow along, giving support to that we think is important. Okay?
Right.
And and one more detail is, one thing that I recently started with Brooke Goitlib, I hope I pronounced her last name right. We started a Python group. We're starting on the 21st, I think, because hopefully then folks can also be able to have the skill to, they have an artifact, they can parse it themselves. So I'm trying to kind of up that knowledge base. Whoever's interested, they can, I will tweet about it soon.
Yeah, I'll give you that opportunity. So tell me this. I mean, in your opinion, has a challenge been accepted, right? So, has it really moved from, say, the backward approach of learning, okay, here's your tool, and now going, oh, we better figure this out. Has it moved that way to, hey, you know what, I need to understand really the data more, rather than just be able to, boom, here it is, and here's the information because this is what the tool tells me it is. I mean, where are you seeing from when you started to now? Because I mean, I've been doing it for a while, and it's been very, very slow, right? It's been very slow of people because it comes down to time, right? Time's an issue for a lot of people, and I need to process all this data and process these phones and have or these computers and these phones and all that information that they're just happy to have the information and give it to, say, the investigator. So tell me, are you seeing people care more about the data rather than the output?
No, that's a great point that you make. If there's something you can see kind of in the deeper forensic space right now, it's a lot of, at least it's my important. This is my opinion. Again, I'm taking from my agency. But what we see is a hard need for triaging, right? And either because we do the scripts, the work, for example, that Eric Zimmerman does with some of his Cape and some of his tools, to be able to triage and figure out these are the main things I want to then dig in, right? The days, and I think we're moving away from that of, give me everything. well, I cannot give you everything. Everything is like, it's like telling me nothing. If I give you everything, I give you nothing, right?
Okay.
And I think slowly we're moving away from that. Now, that being said, right, like you said, it is clear that we have to develop folks to fill the spaces, right? And we're kind of shorthanded in that sense. So at some point, we start by teaching the tool, being certified on the tool for, be able to, the things that we can do with the tool and the output, do it, right? But if we need to go a step further, then that's the development that we are starting to kind of work more and more and more. And I do believe that coding is a skill set that should be emphasized more. I don't believe it is yet, but I see it in the near future. Like if you're a forensic examiner, you need to have at least some scripting knowledge to be able to get where you need to be for your investigations. It's my
Yeah, I
opinion, but
agree.
I believe strongly on it.
No, I agree because it comes down to, just what you have mentioned as well as I have mentioned is that, obviously you have an automated tool. That tool is not going to parse the data that maybe they don't know about, right? Because that's not an application, or it's a 0-day. Say it's a 0-day app. It just came out, right? That now someone has it on their device that say somebody, how can I go now and get the information? Obviously, if it's a SQLite database, hey, great. You know what? There's tools I can utilize for the SQLite database, all that fantastic. What if it's in JSON, right? What if it's in XML? What if it is multiple files, that are utilized to put all the data together? Okay, I
Well,
mean, you're gonna have to understand those, right?
well, yeah, like Realm, like in like NoSQL databases, right?
Exactly.
They're
Yeah.
moving now, and when we thought about in NoSQL, we think about big data stores, but now you can see a NoSQL database inside a phone, right?
Exactly.
And so what? And I have a couple of videos on it. We had I was gonna say we had a case, but I'm not gonna go into the case. But the thing is that it's coming up. You will come
Yeah.
across it, and the tools don't have maybe a unique parsers for it yet. So it's up to you to
Well,
make sure you
yeah,
find that data.
exactly. Exactly what happened with Facebook Messenger, right? Facebook
Hmm.
Messenger broke everything because they're using it with a realm, and it's like, everything broke, right? And
Yeah.
then people are like, what do we do? Hey, these aren't working. Your tool sucks. No, hey, you know what? Hey, they hit this down with iOS. They actually just started releasing stuff with Android, and people are like going, what? What's
Yeah.
that? So no, and I think that that's extremely important to me, and that's one of the things that I try to stress to people too, is that you can't, one, rely on, say, a tool, and you need to kind of understand the output and understand that there's going to be some heavy lifting. And I think that, and I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, is that, coming from the computer forensic world, which I'm sure that you as well, is a lot of people don't want to make that trip, right? Because on the computer forensic side, it's been around for quite some time. There's tools, and I mean, if you talk about autopsy, you talk about some of these great tools that you can go and you can really build some of your own stuff into it, right? But there's still people with the automated side of it, but again, it's more supported.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it used to be called mobile forensic, like with Wild West type stuff, but obviously it's been supported much more, and I think that there's a lot more people into it, but there's a lot of heavy lifting. So I guess if the word dissuades, a lot of those computer forensic guys to migrate into the mobile stuff, because the first time you see a mobile device, you're like, really? So I need to plug this in. I can do a right blocker, right? Yeah, I can just do whatever. So they completely try to do that thing,
Yeah.
and so
No. No right
it's
blockers.
completely weird. It's weird. So I mean, do you still see that with, say, guys that have been doing computer forensic for 20 years and they get a mobile device and they're like, because a lot of agencies, right, have guys that do computers and they do mobile devices because that's just what you do. I mean, I would say the majority of it, because you have your city agencies, some of the state guys that it's difficult to now go and especially manpower, right, to do both. So
Yeah.
I guess, what are you seeing? Are you seeing now computer guys going, okay, this is kind of cool. This is kind of new stuff. It's taking me back to, trying to, I remember, the first computer forensic class that I always bring up is, you're taking and you're hand carving out a JPEG. You're going from the header to the footer, and you're like, oh man, that's the coolest cat ever. It came out, and you're like, seriously? And then they give you an automated tool, and you're like, really? All week I had to hand carve this, and you give me this automated tool. So I mean, are you seeing more computer guys that are getting into mobile stuff?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at least in my AOR, right, the area that I cover, it came down to the agencies have to stretch their dollars. So that's the ideal will be somebody that you specialize, right? You specialize in a Linux boxes, you specialize in Windows boxes, you specialize in iOS. And that happens if you have a big agency, I guess. But in most agencies that I work around my area, I mean, I'm constantly, at least I specialize on mobile, so I kind of help them develop some of those skills, and they help me develop in other ways as well. And it's because of that. Now that we're being kind of forced to be able to be a jack of all trades in a sense. And it can be done. It's just that, it requires a lot of self-awareness of you as an examiner and to put that effort in. And thankfully, there's so many resources online, some of the type of stuff that you do and all the folks that work deeper, that it helps a lot. But yeah, we have to, and it's hard. We have to know enough of every single thing to solve those cases, right? And know where
Right.
to reach out, which is, I think, is really important. It's not so
Yeah.
much that you need to know everything, but at least know who knows,
Yeah.
and
Right.
you can leverage
Yeah.
that.
Right. Right. So I guess to jump off to something here too, obviously the situation with COVID, with all these, and people from working from home. So let's talk about, I mean, what are some of the things that you are seeing, obviously on the law enforcement side? One is crime slowed down. Are you seeing less cases? Obviously, is it difficult if you are working remotely or working from home to do your investigations? I mean, a couple of questions.
Well, so at least my workload, since we're not a first responder agency, right? Because we're not state or local, my casework has slowed down a little bit, which actually has been good because I've been able to catch up on all the my past workload. I was kind of a little bit treading water on, so that's good. But yeah, it has slowed down a little bit, and it makes sense, right? Agents are not out on the street as much as they do. I mean, they're still out, of course. We complete the core mission, but not as much as they used to. So therefore, now I heard from other colleagues that they might see the same amount of work, or they're getting backlogs because they, even though the case is coming, they have to do it in shifts. Like in my case, I work nights to try to avoid, human contact. So yeah, they leave me the evidence sitting nicely in a pile, and then I come at night and I work it, right? So different agencies have different ways, but I think is my assumption. I think most folks have seen a little bit of a slowdown, but obviously when this passes over, I mean, I'm pretty sure everything will ramp up. So we
Right.
need to be
Right.
ready.
So I guess now take it on kind of a silver lining. There's always a positive. So I guess what's a positive that you see from the situation?
Well, at least it has given me some time to really, at least from my perspective, personal, to be able to develop some of my tools more, being able to start going to kind of hopefully share a little bit more, which sometimes is hard. And, when you have a big caseload, it's hard to share, it's hard to code for others and help, right? But so, and something I seen that is, Phil Moore's, you're familiar with it, This Week in Forensics, right? The
Yeah.
amount of articles that come out weekly are insane, right? Insane, they're good, and insane the amount, because I bet people have a little bit more time on their hands to do some
Right. Right.
research and share. So I think that's a good thing. There's a lot of good new research, a lot of good new tools coming out, and I think, and I indirectly or maybe directly, has to do with having more time with COVID.
Yeah, yeah, and so some of the things that obviously I see, and let me ask you this is, I've asked this other guests obviously because of the situation. Do you see that people's awareness of technology has risen based upon obviously the stay at home, having to utilize technology? I mean, do you think that people's understanding has increased?
Well, my thoughts on that is kind of beyond digital forensics and my role per se. I think it does, because at least this is my opinion. Um, there's a lot of work that can be done that you don't have to be sitting in an office, which means you need to understand the communications, the software that can be do that, and the tools to enable that cooperation that's not personal, right? Not in person, right? So I think that understanding on those technologies has come up. Obviously, that brings a whole bunch of other issues in regards to how do we secure the communications, how do we make the work a workflow that's better, right? Now, in regards to my own workload, again, being law enforcement, I can't work from home, right? I can't hook up to the forensic network from home, because by
Right.
definition, a forensic network cannot be internet connected network, right?
Right.
So in that
So
sense, it hasn't affected me that much.
So what problem do you think that brings up, right? So with the remote and the access, typically you're going to work on an air gap system. You have that, you're not able to connect to it, say remotely. Do you think that, I guess businesses, and we don't just say federal government, it could be state, local, it doesn't even have to be law enforcement or a government agency.
Hmm.
Do you think that do you think that those businesses are going to change the way that they're either working, and we're talking digitally,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
they're working based upon this?
No, I believe so. And obviously businesses don't have the limitations, not limitations, put it this way, don't have this, um, not laws, I'm looking for a word, procedures, right, that we need to follow as a law enforcement agency, right? Because our processes need to be accepted at court, right? So there's a different process there, right? But companies, I see remote collections as a big thing, as a thing that's, I mean, it's not new, but now exploding, right? Having tools that integrates remote collection with analysis. And companies need to leverage that when they have a workforce that's remote, when the server's sitting in one place and you're an analyst or examiner sits somewhere else. So I see remote collections being a really big thing that companies are now realizing, that, you might not need to fly out to go grab an image of this server if we have the proper client set up on the box and you can image it across the wire, right? Why not?
Right.
Um,
So do you think that's going to increase? Well, so my opinion, or what I think is going to happen, I believe when, this people start getting back to work, or, I do believe that the caseloads will increase on the digital side of it, because either now they're bringing equipment that they've had off-site, right, that they've been using off-site at their homes, at their residence, and they're now bringing that into a secured environment that might be as part of the network. Do you see now more, say, on the cybersecurity side, and then obviously with the digital forensics side of it now having to do the analysis? Do you see those increasing
oh
because of this?
no, oh absolutely, and not only if they bring it into the enterprise, right? Even if, like, let's say like Twitter says now, well, everybody can work from home now. Well, that presents a lot of challenges, right? In regards to secure the data remotely, and it's an incident happens, how do we investigate that? And again, I'm talking from the perspective of company, right? Like corporate investigations. It's going to be a lot of challenge and a lot of adapting for our field. Having now things not as centralized, right? Not everything is sitting at a location, right? Some folks are not going to be working remote permanently. Some businesses will say, you know what? We have no need to spend millions of dollars in office space and heating and
Right.
cooling, you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So, or vice versa, if they come back in, excuse me, if they come back in, then yeah, how do we make sure that this computers, dirty computers, we
Right.
integrate them correctly, right?
Right. Right. So think about this too. And do you think that law enforcement, or law enforcement in general, it's going to be easier to, say, convince, when you're completing your affidavit and you're going to get a search warrant for, say, the device, but also including cloud data? Do you think that the understanding of the information stored on a server outside, obviously, the realm of the device is going to be more understandable and be able to, a little more ease in acquiring that data, instead of having to send, say, a search warrant to Google or to Facebook or to those other sites, but being utilized some sort of tool, or some understanding?
Um, so there's a couple of things, right? And I totally agreeing with you. For the last, I remember when cloud was a thing, we didn't know cloud. What's our authorities? Can I
Where is
take it,
it?
not take it? Yeah, what do I do, right? So I think we're at a point where we're pretty solid in regards to what the procedures are, what the legal authorities are, right? Um, Now the tools need to catch up. I remember, doing for my own testing, they put it that way, pulling stuff from takeout, as opposed to, and which in some contexts we always do, right? Not always. We might need to do, but also you can complement that with, like you said, sending procedure, even if it's for not criminal, but lawsuits and stuff like that. Process to bring that data in, right? So I think we're pretty solid on that. How the amount of data that we're going to get in the future based on cloud sources, I believe is going to increase exponentially based on what you're saying, and
Yeah.
based that every single service, even the chats that you have on your phone, right? The main data store is not going to be your phone anymore. And you see this on the technical side, right? You see, oh, SQLite database on my app on my phone. If you look at it inside the SQLite database, it's JSON. And why
Right.
is it JSON? Because it's just pulling down from the server, right?
Yeah.
And even if this phone, a car goes over it, that data
Yeah,
might still reside, most likely
exactly.
resides over on the other side, right? Which is
Yep.
a change that's been going on. It's becoming pretty much the norm now.
Yeah. And so, remember, again, I'm dating myself, but the T-Mobile Sidekick, right? So the T-Mobile Sidekick was one of the, at least that I know, to be in, I could be corrected for sure, but the T-Mobile Sidekick was the first active device, meaning that it had to be hooked to the network. It did store data. So it was an active device, meaning that when I turned that thing on, my data was back because everything was stored right onto a
Hmm.
server.
Hmm.
Which quite honestly right now is happening on everything on your device, right? So it's being stored because, like you said, if it gets run over, hey, it's okay. I get a new phone and whoop, hey, I might not have all of the information, right, if I wasn't utilizing the service or whatever, but every third-party application, right? Oh, I sign in and whoop, oh, my data's there. So I completely agree with that. I think that really the understanding of that information and transactional device right now is so important for people to understand, especially now convincing ASU, the prosecutors, or those people who are representing and the judges to educate them on that information and its availability, right? You don't necessarily have the device because it might still be living there, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. And there's a lot of, legal things that need to happen before that. Sometimes you say, well, I'll just send information to the provider, the legal process, they'll bring it, but what if it's encrypted, right? And there's ways of working that, right? But it requires, this, and I'm not going to go into it here, but this technical knowledge, this leverage your legal knowledge from the people that are qualified to do that to get the job done. But I believe, like you said, this is going to be pretty much, I think, the norm in a sense that those are going to be our main data stores, not even the device. The device will be more like a door that you open to get to those. You know what I mean?
right, right. So give me this. So a couple more questions. This question is, so I know that, again, like I said, that you like scripts, you like to write those things. So tell me, what is your favorite one? Or no, I'm going to phrase it this way. What script that you have that you've developed that was the best thing for mankind?
All of them. No, just kidding.
You're right.
See, so the thing is, I'm gonna give props to a couple of people. First, I want to give props to Jessica Hyde. I did one-off scripts, a lot of one-off scripts, because I have a need. I do a script, need solved. Next, right?
Right,
And
right.
she
Move
said,
on.
she said, well, how about you put them all together in one place so it's kind of integrated. So I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So that's where my ideas for iLeap for iOS and ALeap for Android came about, right? The second shout out is for Sarah Edwards. I leverage her resource, and that's the thing, right? It's not a me thing or a you thing. It's an us thing, right?
Right,
The community comes together with this research and makes it available, and I leverage a lot of her knowledge into my tools, right?
right, right,
So, and I will mention ALib and iLib just because there's like the conglomerate of all the
right.
things, and it's not because it's something new, right? Or the best either, right? One.
So tell everyone though, so Alip and I know this with the storage that you have it, but tell me, give me some of those and give everyone kind of an idea of those scripts, some of them, what can they do? Some samples.
So both ALIP and iLib. Oh, and one third shout out to Yogesh Khattri. He's one of my co-author with some of the scripts. Without him, this tool wouldn't be as good as it is. So I want to make sure I mention him. So what the scripts do is they take iOS or Android images, be it a tar, a zip, or a file system directory, like just sitting in your file system, goes through them and finds artifacts of interest. And it kind of simulates some, not simulates. It's the same category as other forensic tools, right? And again, it's just me and Yogesh pretty much and some collaborators, right? But
Right, right,
the thing I've done with our tool is when I'm really the focus is triaging. If you can run and really get a lot of artifacts in less than 10 minutes, and for example, there's some artifacts that tell you when an app was deleted at what point, and I think it's really powerful when you have in a case, be it criminal or civil, and the person tells you, well, tells you some story, and you tell them, well, actually, you deleted this app right up when I knock at your door, right?
right.
And it takes less than 10 minutes. So it's more of a triaging tool where you can get some
Sure.
things, and then in parallel, the big, heavy tool is running, and then you
Right,
can dig deeper using that tool or your own understanding going hands-on, okay? So
right.
that's the thing about iLeap and ALeap, more of a triaging, and we keep adding new stuff to it. But keeping the time of parsing short, so you can get a lot in a little bit of time, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. No, it's great. No, it's, yeah, and familiar. And then, hey, it's fantastic. It's a great thing. Again, you keep saying the same word, community. I think that's pretty important. It's still a small community. People know people and things like that. So as long as but I appreciate that. And the last question I'm going to ask you, because I've been staring at it, okay, is your Marvel poster, because I need to know who's your favorite. Who's your favorite character? Because I'll tell you mine.
So for the longest, I always like the Punisher because he has no superpowers.
Oh, there you go. Exactly right, right? Well, I'm a Spider-Man fan. I don't know. I always
That's
been a
that's
Spider-Man.
a super solid choice. I can agree with that.
Always been. Well, you know what? I remember as a kid always trying to pretty much every Halloween I was Spider-Man. So I don't know why. It's pretty good. But anyway, I want to thank you. I mean, it's fantastic. For you to hang out and have a little chat and everything. But I appreciate it. And so we'll say cheers and thank you.
Absolutely.
Again,
Cheers.
very good.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. I had a lot of fun.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Awesome. Hey, so another forensic happy hour in the books. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And hey, like I said, direct message to me here and we can get you on. I really appreciate the time. And I also want to say, here's Alexis Twitter. Please contact him, because super smart guy, and he can help you out with some of the scripts that he's got going on. So again, I appreciate it. Thank you.